G'day and welcome to another episode of Cuppa with the Jesuit. I'm Father Robin Koning, the Provincial Assistant for Vocations for the Australian Jesuit Province.
With Father Robin, I'm Julian Butler, a Jesuit in formation and training for priesthood, and we're joined today by Father Andy Hamilton. Andy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be with you.
Father Andy, would you begin maybe by telling us a bit about your current ministry, the work that you're involved in at the moment?
Yes, my ministry mainly now is writing, and I write for the outlets of Jesuit Communications, but also for Jesuit Social Services too. And that's in magazines and websites and the various other forms of communication.
And where do you, in that work, would you just to tell us a bit more about the kinds of publications you're writing for, the kind of audiences that you write for between Jesuit Social Services and Jesuit Communications?
Yes, perhaps the most regular writing I do is for Eureka Street, an article each week for that. Eureka Street's a public language magazine, which is to say that it goes out to an audience which is not entirely Catholic, and so it's talking about news of the day, and also sometimes about religious topics too, but in a way that anybody could understand without being necessarily a Catholic, and so that in writing for that, then the topics would range pretty widely. Recently, robo-debt and economics, history, some reviews, and so forth. So that's probably the most regular writing. But then also at Jesuit Communications, we have other magazines, Madonna magazine for people who are on the whole very committed and devout Catholics, and magazine to help people to pray and get that sense of being with other people too, who are also have a strong Catholic commitment, and Australian Catholics, which goes out to schools and parishes. And I suppose the magazine, the audience for that then is, perhaps you might say, tribally Catholic, and so very largely consists of stories of interest to Catholics, but stories also about Catholics who are doing interesting things. So they're the regular publications. Then there's also websites and other things which we have. And for Jesuit Social Services, I suppose I'm partly writing material which is not technical, but adapting that for audience, more general audiences. And Jesuit Social Services works mainly with disadvantaged young people, and so to be writing about issues which are close to their work is also something which I enjoy doing. So they're the main parts of the ministry, and then of course there's the other ministries to just for the small things which I do, like masses in the remand centre, in the immigration detention centre, and also in small Catholic communities around the place too.
And Andy, a large part of your life and your ongoing ministry has been a concern for refugees, and your pastoral work with them, as well as your advocacy for them as part of your writing. Can you share a bit about your passion for refugees?
Yes, I think that's been something which has been very strong for me since the 1980s, where I spent about 3 or 4 summers in refugee camps on the border of Thailand, Cambodian camps, and that I think really after the the first experience, which was a very moving experience of just being with people who are, I suppose, very disadvantaged, very difficult situation, and just being with them where they've been neglected pretty much by the rest of the world, I suppose. But so after 3 months, I was with them, and then I came home. But and the coming home was difficult because everybody else had been, comes and goes with them, and they have to stay in the camp.
Mm.
So decided at the end of that that with refugees I was going to stay with, that my interest, commitment to refugees would be something that would be lasting. And so that took various forms. I was chaplain to the Cambodian and Catholic community, and very small in Melbourne, just as they were coming, and then to the also the very small Catholic community from Laos, and which actually I'm still, I suppose you'd still say, you might say, chaplain to them, to the Laotian community after about 40 years. So we've grown up together, and so that's been a great gift. But my main commitment, though, otherwise, has been in writing. That in, for Eureka Street and elsewhere, do a fair bit of writing for on refugee issues, and to try and gain support for a more humane treatment of refugees, particularly in Australia.
Andy, throughout that time of engagement with refugees, for much of that time anyway, you kind of were coming back to a day job teaching theology. Would you share with us what your approach was to teaching and what you enjoyed about being a teacher of theology?
Well, a number of things I enjoyed. I enjoyed the students, really. It's the relationship with students which was key. But then also within theology, to try, just really trying to help people to see it from inside, you might say, to see faith from inside, rather than simply as just things that you believe. But why would you believe these things, and what difference might it make if you believe them? And so that's where I found in my teaching, the refugee experience was something that was really very important to me, because you constantly come back to the question of what matters. And so in theology, what really matters, say in the, if you might say, the doctrine of the Trinity, why does it matter? What matters in it? And because the heart of faith is that it matters more than anything else. So and it doesn't matter just simply because it's something that you list of commandments, or a list of facts, or a list of doctrines. It matters because it's about life changing. It matters in a life changing way. And so I suppose engaging in conversations at that level was, I found very both stimulating, but also having the background. My main background is in history of the church and theology as it developed, and so just entering those worlds and asking the same questions, and particularly as in the place I was teaching was an ecumenical theologate. There's combined Anglican, Uniting Church, and Jesuits in teachers and in students, and of course many others who are part-time students. That was very rich form of teaching. So so I found it was challenging in the right way for myself, challenging to be thinking more constantly, because if you're if I was talking to a class, say, about Eucharist, and I had Uniting Church and Anglican students together, and perhaps teaching also with a colleague from one of the other churches, that constantly, after you've been speaking for a while, you would say, so is it like this? And then often the students would say, students from other traditions would say, no, it's not like this, it's like this. So then I would ask, well, what is it like? And so I was learning more about, not only learning more about their views on things, but also entering it from inside, so as to speak, so that you could see how it worked within their faith and within the just the way in which they lived their life. And so I found that sort of teaching very stimulating.
And you've described a whole range of involvements during your Jesuit life. I imagine joining the Jesuits as a young man, you probably wouldn't have thought that you'd be involved in all those different areas. What was it that attracted you to the Jesuits and led you to apply to join?
Yeah, well, I was a fairly conventional young man, I think, really, a boy, that I went to a Jesuit school, Xavier College in Melbourne, and about 4 of us, I think 4 or 5 of us, joined on that particular year from school, and so it was what I thought I would probably be doing was spending the rest of my life teaching in school. But I think what attracted me, though, I thought at the time that apart from just being, for me, faith was something strong, that it was at that stage. I mean, faith was it was a way of life, really. That I went to the Catholic school, and I attended the Catholic church, and I played tennis in a Catholic tennis court, and played cricket with a Catholic cricket team, and we went to the snow when it was Catholic snow, and so it was on. So that was the world I was living in. But what attracted me, though, really was I think the life of some of the Jesuits that I met who taught me, and I think that I thought, well, if I grew old like them, it would be a very worthwhile life to have lived. Looking back, I think that these old people I was talking about must have been 40 or something like that. so that was that was how it was at the start, and then of course, as you once you join a religious congregation, or once you take up anything in life, and there's something that really attracts you to it, then there's the living of it. Then you get shaped into the living of it, I suppose, and you discover that what seem to be all roses has lots of prickles also. But that's the thing about roses, and so that's the life. So the life I found very at a deeper level very satisfying.
Given that, Andy, that sense of deeper satisfaction, if you were talking to a young man who was interested in religious life, interested in joining the Jesuits, what might you say to him?
I'd start off with questions. I wouldn't be saying anything to him. Really, it's a standard question I ask almost of anybody, anything I'm interviewing, is why would you want to do something so daft as become a Jesuit? And so to put it in that, in that you might say humorous way, but also, but then to listen to why, and the question I'll be interested in is, well, what gives you life in that idea? What gives you life when you consider becoming a Jesuit? As we would talk about that, then what I might say would come out of that. I'd encourage them to give it a go, in the sense of just keep it in mind, but also then, well, find out something about the Jesuits, meet a Jesuit or two. I think asking constantly that question, where do you find life, I think would be the basic questions, and then you'd follow it up on wherever those questions took you.
That's great, Andy, and we're certainly grateful that you chose to do something so daft as to join the Jesuits, and also something so daft as to be ready to be interviewed by us today. So thank you for your time and for all that you've shared with us.
Oh, thank you very much.